This is Channel 12 News at 10. I'm Alex Becker.
And I'm Maddie Norman. Tonight we'll discuss whether or not you know what's in your meat.
By now, everyone has either heard of or read the controversial novel by Upton Sinclair, better known as The Jungle. Sinclair, a journalist, went undercover as a worker in the Chicago meatpacking industry. His goal was to bring awareness to the exploitation of immigrant workers. However, the book exposed the lack of food safety present in the factories, and the public was outraged. And now to Molly O'Neill with an interview from a local consumer.
Thanks, Alex. I'm here with Betty Ann, who is worried about the quality of meat she's buying for her family. So, Betty Ann, what shocks you most about the quality of meat and where it comes from?
Well, I love myself some meat, and I don't understand why someone has the audacity to publish a novel about the disgusting meatpacking industry. I would have been better off not knowing about the dirty rat poo and disgusting water that is used in the meat that I feed to my children and my hubby.
Do you really think Sinclair shouldn't have published this novel that brought attention to the public about the disgusting animal-killing meatpacking industry?
Well, the slaughtering of animals is a necessity of life.
Okay, now back to Maddie and Alex.
Thank you for that interesting interview. In response to this novel, the government passed two acts, the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act.
The Pure Food and Drug Act requires federal inspections of meat products, labeling of all medicines, and it paved the way for the newly founded FDA. The Meat Inspection Act requires the government to inspect all cattle when slaughtered and processed for human consumption. And, as mentioned before, Sinclair tried to expose the working conditions of immigrant factory workers. But they weren't the only ones with bad working conditions.
A recent study shows that child labor is on the rise. Over 1.7 million children under the age of 16 are working outside their homes. Now that families are relocating to factory work, their children are performing dangerous jobs and are being overworked by cruel bosses. Reformers are working to create a national child labor committee to work to abolish child labor. Now, back to Molly with more on the scene.
Thanks, Maddie. I'm here with a local doctor who claims that children who are working in factories are suffering from back issues along with other crippling problems.
That's right, Molly. I'm seeing more and more children with crippled hands and legs from crawling in tight spaces for prolonged periods of time. I'm also seeing children with permanently bent backs and stunted growth.
Have you read John Spargo's novel, The Bitter Cry of the Children?
I have. It centers on not only the terrible working conditions for these children, but also how underpaid they were. The boys in the book picked slag out of coal for 10 hours a day, and were only paid 60 cents for their hard work.
Absolutely disgraceful. Thanks, Carol. And now back to Maddie and Alex, who have the info on the tragic Triangle Shirtwaist fire that happened on the 26th.
In New York this past week, 3 floors owned by the Triangle Shirtwaist Company in the Ash Building caught fire, trapping hundreds of workers inside.
Most of the workers were Italian and Eastern European immigrant women, and investigators are now looking into the extremely poor working conditions that these women were subject to.
Some women working were as young as 12 or 13, working 14-hour shifts and only making $1.50 per week. There were no fire extinguishers present in the factory, not to mention the highly flammable materials present throughout the floors. There were only 2 exits that were locked from the outside, and the single fire escape collapsed, causing workers to jump from the building windows. 146 workers were killed. Here's Molly interviewing a survivor of the tragedy.
Can you please explain what happened to you?
Well, I thought somebody was barbecuing, and I said, "Sweet Lord Jesus, it's a fire," and I ran for my life. Then the smoke got me. I got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. Now back to Maddie and Alex.
Thanks, Molly. Speaking of rambunctious women, the former leader of the National American Women's Suffrage Association, Alice Paul, is currently picketing outside the White House, now to live footage on the scene.
We want rights! We want rights! We just want our flipping rights! Give us rights!
The most recent antics include her and her supporters picketing, blocking sidewalks, chaining themselves to lampposts, and threatening to go on hunger strikes if arrested. Surprisingly, Congress has begun to discuss a possible constitutional amendment as more states are beginning to pass women's suffrage. That's all for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Maddie Norman.
And I'm Alex Becker. From everyone here, Channel 12 News. Have a good night.